Have you ever watched an English video, understood almost everything, and then, the moment someone asked you to speak, your brain suddenly went blank? If that has ever happened to you, don't worry. You're not alone. Millions of English learners experience the exact same problem every single day. The good news is that the problem is not your intelligence, your memory, or even your grammar. The real problem is the way you've been learning English. Let me ask you something. Imagine you spend 6 months watching cooking videos. You know every recipe. You know which ingredients are needed. You know when to add salt, when to lower the heat, and even how professional chefs decorate their dishes. Now answer honestly. Would you become a great chef without ever entering the kitchen? Of course not. Watching teaches you information. Practice builds your skill. English works exactly the same way. Most learners spend hours watching YouTube videos, memorizing vocabulary, and reading grammar books. But when it's time to speak, they stay silent. Why? Because watching English and speaking English are two completely different skills. Now imagine this funny situation. Your friend suddenly comes running toward you and shouts, "Run! There's a dog behind you." If your brain first says, "Wait, let me translate that into Hindi," then, "Now let me think of the English reply." By the time you're ready, the dog has probably already introduced himself. Sounds funny, right? But that's exactly what happens during real conversations. Nobody pauses while you translate. Real conversations move quickly, and that's why thinking directly in English is one of the most important skills you can develop. Here's another example. Suppose someone asks, "What did you eat today?" Instead of answering immediately, your brain starts working overtime. What did he say? Translate it. Now make the sentence. Should I use present perfect or simple past? Oh no, I forgot the grammar. I'll just smile. Congratulations. Your brain has completed an entire project before saying a single sentence. The truth is, fluency isn't about knowing the most grammar rules. It's about responding naturally. Children don't learn their first language by studying grammar books. They listen. They repeat. They make mistakes. They improve. You can do the same with English. So today, stop chasing perfection. Start chasing progress. Because every confident English speaker you admire was once a beginner who made hundreds of mistakes and kept speaking anyway. Now, before we move on, let me ask you one simple question. Do you know what the biggest lie about learning English is? People say, first become perfect, then start speaking. Sounds logical, doesn't it? But it's completely wrong. Think about this. Imagine a child saying, "I'll start walking only after I learn how to balance perfectly." Impossible, right? The child learns balance by walking, not before walking. English follows the same rule. You become fluent by speaking, not by waiting to become fluent. Now let me tell you about two imaginary students. Meet Alex and Ryan. Alex loves collecting English knowledge. His phone is full of vocabulary screenshots. He has downloaded 10 grammar PDFs. Every day, he watches 3 English videos. He knows the meanings of difficult words like extraordinary, determination, and opportunity. But there's one problem. He never opens his mouth. Every time he gets a chance to speak, he says, "I'm not ready yet." Now meet Ryan. Ryan knows fewer words than Alex. Sometimes he even makes funny grammar mistakes. Instead of saying, "I went to the market," he accidentally says, "I go to the market yesterday." People correct him. He smiles. He learns. And the next time, he says it correctly. After 6 months, who do you think speaks better English? Most people think it's Alex. But the answer is Ryan. Why? Because knowledge stored in your notebook doesn't become fluency. Knowledge becomes fluency only when it comes out of your mouth. Here's another funny example. Imagine buying the world's most expensive gym membership. You watch people exercising every day. You even memorize the names of every machine. You know how to lift weights. You know how muscles grow. But you never actually exercise. Will your muscles grow? Of course not. Your brain and your speaking skills work exactly the same way. Watching is useful. Listening is useful. Reading is useful. But speaking is the exercise that builds fluency. Now here's a small challenge. Don't answer in your native language. Answer only inside your mind. In English, what color is your shirt? What's the first thing you did after waking up today? What did you eat for breakfast? If you answered quickly, that's great. If it took a little time, that's completely normal. Your brain is learning a brand new habit. And every new habit feels slow in the beginning. But remember this. Every fluent English speaker you see today was once a beginner who struggled to answer even the simplest questions. The difference is, they didn't stop, and neither should you. Now imagine something interesting. The next morning, Alex and Ryan decide to challenge each other. The challenge is simple. For the next 7 days, they will spend exactly 30 minutes every day improving their English. Alex follows his usual routine. He watches grammar videos. He writes difficult vocabulary in a notebook. He memorizes long word lists. By the end of the day, he feels productive. Ryan does something completely different. He stands in front of a mirror and starts talking. At first, it's awkward. Hello, my name is Ryan. My favorite food is pizza. I like playing football. After 30 seconds, he runs out of ideas. He laughs at himself. Then he looks around his room. The fan is spinning. My phone is charging. The window is open. My backpack is under the chair. Simple sentences. Nothing fancy. But he keeps speaking. On the second day, Ryan records his own voice. The moment he listens to it, he almost drops his phone. Do I really sound like that? He laughs. Most English learners experience the same shock. The first time we hear our own voice in English, it sounds strange. Not because it's bad, but because we're not used to hearing ourselves. Think about singers. Do they become better by avoiding recordings? No. They listen carefully. They notice mistakes. Then they improve. Ryan does exactly that. Every day, he records 1 minute of English. Every day, he notices one small mistake. Sometimes his pronunciation is wrong. Sometimes he forgets a word. Sometimes he pauses too much. But instead of feeling embarrassed, he becomes curious. He asks himself, how can I sound just 1% better tomorrow? Now look at Alex. He's still waiting for the perfect day to start speaking. Every evening he tells himself, I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow keeps moving further away. Here's a funny truth. Tomorrow is probably the busiest day in the world, because millions of people keep planning to start on that day. Don't become one of them. Your first spoken sentence doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to exist, because every sentence you speak is one step closer to confidence. Every mistake is one lesson. Every lesson is one improvement. And every improvement brings you closer to becoming the English speaker you've always wanted to be. So here's today's mission. Record yourself speaking English for just 1 minute. Don't delete it. Don't judge it. Just save it. One day, you'll listen to that recording again, and you'll smile because you'll realize how far you've come. A week later, Alex and Ryan met again. Alex looked excited. I learned 250 new vocabulary words this week, he said proudly. Ryan smiled. That's amazing. Can you use them in a conversation? Alex became quiet. He knew the meanings of the words. He had memorized the spellings. But using them while speaking was a completely different challenge. Then Ryan said, let me tell you what I did. I didn't learn 250 words. I learned only 20. Alex looked surprised. Only 20. Ryan nodded. Yes, but I used every single one of them in real sentences. For example, instead of just memorizing the word confident, he said, I want to become a confident English speaker. Instead of memorizing the word improve, he said, I improve my English every single day. Instead of memorizing the word mistake, he said, every mistake teaches me something new. Suddenly, those words were no longer just vocabulary. They had become part of his everyday speech. Here's a question for you. Imagine someone gives you the phone numbers of 100 strangers. Will you remember all of them tomorrow? Probably not. Now imagine one of those numbers belongs to your best friend. You'll remember it much more easily. Why? Because your brain remembers things that have meaning. English works the same way. Random vocabulary disappears. Useful vocabulary stays. That's why learning 10 useful words deeply is far more powerful than memorizing 100 words you'll never use. Now here's a funny situation. Imagine you learn the word photosynthesis. Great. But then someone asks, what did you eat for lunch? And you proudly answer, photosynthesis. Congratulations. You know a difficult word, but you're still hungry. The lesson is simple. Don't chase difficult English. Chase useful English. Learn the words that you can actually use every day. The goal isn't to sound like a dictionary. The goal is to communicate clearly. From this day forward, whenever you learn a new word, don't stop after reading its meaning. Use it in 3 different sentences. Speak those sentences aloud. Repeat them the next day. That's how words move from your notebook to your memory, and finally, to your conversations. And that's the moment when real fluency begins. The next day, Ryan decided to try something new. Instead of studying at his desk, He turned his entire day into an English classroom. The moment he woke up, he looked at the ceiling and said, "Good morning. Today is going to be a productive day." When he brushed his teeth, he didn't stay silent. He spoke to himself. "I'm brushing my teeth. The water is cold. I need to wake up." While making breakfast, he continued, "I'm cutting the bread. I'm pouring the milk. This smells really good." Nobody was listening. Nobody was judging him. But something incredible was happening. His brain was slowly getting used to thinking in English. That evening, Alex visited Ryan. He laughed and said, "So, you talk to yourself now?" Ryan laughed too. "Yes, I do." Alex smiled. "Isn't that a little weird?" Ryan replied, "Maybe, but staying silent for 5 years and expecting to become fluent is even weirder." For a few seconds, Alex didn't know what to say. Deep down, he realized Ryan had a point. Here's something interesting. Have you ever noticed that you talk to yourself in your mind every single day? You think about school. You think about work. You think about food. You think about tomorrow. Now imagine if just 10% of those thoughts were in English. Wouldn't your speaking improve automatically? Of course it would. Because fluency begins long before you open your mouth. It begins inside your mind. Here's a simple exercise. Don't translate this question. Just answer it immediately. What are you doing right now? Maybe you're watching this video. Maybe you're sitting on your bed. Maybe you're traveling. Whatever you're doing, describe it in English. Simple sentences are enough. You don't need difficult grammar. You don't need fancy vocabulary. You just need consistency. Remember, a river doesn't cut through a rock because it's powerful. It cuts through because it keeps flowing. Your English will improve the same way. Not because you study for 10 hours in one day, but because you practice a little every single day. So from today, stop waiting for the perfect environment. Your room is your classroom. Your thoughts are your practice. And your voice is your greatest teacher. The more you use it, the stronger your English becomes. A few weeks passed, and something unexpected happened. Ryan didn't become fluent overnight. He still made mistakes. He still forgot words. Sometimes he stopped in the middle of a sentence because he couldn't remember the right expression. But something had changed. He was no longer afraid. One afternoon, Alex asked him, "Don't you ever feel embarrassed when you make mistakes?" Ryan smiled and replied, "Of course I do. But I've realized something important. Mistakes are temporary. Silence can become permanent." Alex thought about those words for a moment. They hit harder than he expected. The next day, both of them went to a small English-speaking club. Everyone had to introduce themselves. Alex's heart started beating faster. What if I forget my words? What if everyone laughs at me? What if I make grammar mistakes? His mind was full of questions. Ryan whispered, "Stop asking, what if I fail? Start asking, what if I surprise myself?" When Alex's turn came, he stood up nervously. "Hello, my name is Alex. I'm learning English because I want to communicate with people around the world." He paused. He forgot a word. For a second, the room became silent. A week later, Alex and Ryan met again. Alex looked excited. "I learned 250 new vocabulary words this week," he said proudly. Ryan smiled. "That's amazing. Can you use them in a conversation?" Alex became quiet. He knew the meanings of the words. He had memorized the spellings. But using them while speaking was a completely different challenge. Then Ryan said, "Let me tell you what I did. I didn't learn 250 words. I learned only 20. Alex looked surprised. "Only 20. Ryan nodded. "Yes, but I used every single one of them in real sentences. For example, instead of just memorizing the word confident, he said, I want to become a confident English speaker. Instead of memorizing the word improve, he said, I improve my English every single day. Instead of memorizing the word mistake, he said, every mistake teaches me something new. Suddenly, those words were no longer just vocabulary. They had become part of his everyday speech. Here's a question for you. Imagine someone gives you the phone numbers of 100 strangers. Will you remember all of them tomorrow? Probably not. Now imagine one of those numbers belongs to your best friend. You'll remember it much more easily. Why? Because your brain remembers things that have meaning. English works the same way. Random vocabulary disappears. Useful vocabulary stays. That's why learning 10 useful words deeply is far more powerful than memorizing 100 words you'll never use. Now here's a funny situation. Imagine you learn the word photosynthesis. Great. But then someone asks, what did you eat for lunch? And you proudly answer, photosynthesis. Congratulations. You know a difficult word. but you're still hungry. The lesson is simple. Don't chase difficult English. Chase useful English. Learn the words that you can actually use every day. The goal isn't to sound like a dictionary. The goal is to communicate clearly. From this day forward, whenever you learn a new word, don't stop after reading its meaning. Use it in 3 different sentences. Speak those sentences aloud. Repeat them the next day. That's how words move from your notebook to your memory, and finally, to your conversations. And that's the moment when real fluency begins.